Okay, step number one here is to cast on all your stitches. So the first thing you need to do if you're not familiar with yarn is pull your yarn from the inside of the skein. You can start from the outside. There will usually be an end on the outside. The problem with that is that then you're stuck having to unroll it and unroll it and unroll it the whole time. If you pull from the inside, it just will pull out of the middle and kind of unspool in there, and it's a lot easier. So just a little tip there. Okay, so the first thing that you always do when casting on in arm knitting or regular knitting is you have to do a slip knot to start. So in order to do that, you cross your yarn over itself here, and you reach through the hole and pull it through itself and kind of snug up that knot, and then you can just pull either direction and it makes it bigger or smaller, and that is why it's called a slip knot. Okay, so you take that first stitch and slip it over your hand. Okay, and then kind of tighten it. You don't want it too tight because you're going to need this to walk up your arm as you add more stitches. And I've definitely gotten myself in positions where I'm like wedging it up my arm and it can cut off your circulation, so don't do that. Okay, so once you have your first stitch on, you're going to reach through the gap between that stitch and your wrist and grab the long tail of yarn, pull it through, make a little circle, and slip it back over your hand to create stitch number 2. And after every stitch you add, you kind of want to get it the right looseness so you have enough room again for it to slide. So from here on out, casting on is basically just that. The only difference is stitch 1 is a little bit unique in that you only have 1 stitch to work with. Stitches 2 and beyond, you have 2 to work with. So instead of reaching through here, I reach between the last 2 stitches, grab the tail of yarn, pull it through, and put it on. Reach through, grab, pull through, slip on. Little tails kind of getting in the way. Okay, so for this pattern, I'm recommending you cast on 30 stitches, and I'll post the final dimensions that this blanket comes out to. With thicker yarn, I used some thicker yarn last year, and I think I did about 20 stitches, and that came out to be probably a little over 3 feet wide, but that was even thicker than this, so it just really depends on what yarn you're working with. So I'm just going to keep casting on here. One thing I'll caution you, don't worry as you are going that as you kind of get near to 30 stitches that it seems really small. Once you knit a little bit, you know, as it grows, you can stretch it out, and it stretches a lot because these stitches are just so big. So it's going to look like it is suitable for a small doll. Don't be alarmed, it will grow in width. One other piece of advice is that if the dimensions that I post, if you want something bigger or smaller, all you have to do is just put more stitches or less stitches on in the beginning, and then like it really doesn't change the process at all. You'll do all the rows the same. It's just you need to put more stitches on, cast on more stitches in this step, or fewer stitches depending on what it is you're trying to make. So for example, if you love this yarn but don't want a blanket, you'd rather make like a scarf, which would knit up really, really fast and also be really warm, if not sheddy. You could just cast on like 6 stitches and make probably about a little less than a foot wide scarf, and you could get several scarves out of one of these skeins. So there are a lot of different things that you could make with this fun, fuzzy, warm, cozy yarn. So just keep going. I don't think I'm quite there yet. Hoping everyone can hear my fun Christmas music in the background. This yarn also came in a variety of other colors at Hobby Lobby. There was a kind of a turquoise, I think there was a kind of a variegated red. So you have options. Alright, I'm going to count and see where I am. This gets a little bit tough sometimes to tell. The stitches are so fuzzy they kind of fuse together, so you have to kind of figure out where they are to count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 26. Okay, so I need 4 more. Probably should take off my ring because it's going to want to catch this yarn. Okay, so that should be 30. It really doesn't matter if you have 1 extra or a couple extra, or if you have a few less than this. It's really just going to dictate how wide your blanket is. So I'm going to cut this video off here and start a new one for the actual knitting process, but that is how you cast on. Got an armful of yarn ready to go.